It's been more than 160 years since the Battle of Gettysburg. Many believe this three-day Civil War bloodbath left behind some of the most haunted ground in America. And this video may capture the proof. It's the evening of September 2nd, 2020 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. A tourist who has asked not to be named is driving through the historic battlefield with his family. He suddenly starts hearing strange noises, and then history comes to life. A camera shooting through the windshield shows two cannons coming up on the right side of the road, when out of nowhere, a couple of human-like silhouettes flash into the frame. One appears and vanishes quickly, but the other stays in view for a whole 3 seconds before disappearing.
For these tourists who came to this area just to get a glimpse of the history, to catch a glimpse of the afterlife, I find to be extraordinary.
There may be a very simple explanation for these ghostly apparitions. Gettysburg was the single bloodiest battle of the Civil War, and these cannons from an unspecified part of the battlefield likely did their share of killing.
This plot of land is the bullseye. This is where it's happening, and I think this is what we were seeing in this footage right by those cannons. Ghostly apparitions.
Nearly a third of the soldiers who fought in Gettysburg were either wounded, killed, or reported missing after the battle. Brooks says eerie energy permeates the entire town to this day, and there have been regular alleged sightings of Civil War ghosts.
The Balladary Inn served as a Union field hospital. It has captured many, many images of ghostly remnants and apparitions around the area. Then there's the Daniel Lady Farm. Now this served as the Confederate field hospital. There are many accounts of ghostly apparitions that have shown up there.
So could these photos and our video show the souls of Civil War soldiers waiting in purgatory? Catholic miracle researcher Michael O'Neill says this Christian concept is like God's waiting room.
According to Catholic belief, those people whose souls aren't ready to meet God go through some time of purgation in which they're perfected and made ready to be in the beatific vision with God. There is no set time for purgatory. Some might make the argument that returning to the place of one's death is similar to the idea of working through purgatory on their way to heaven.
There are reports of haunted battlefields worldwide. In Japan, people still pray in a cave said to be haunted by villagers who were instructed by the army to die by mass suicide during the Battle of Okinawa in World War II. Yet, what's the story with the moving blurs back in Gettysburg? Let's let our experts shine a light on this one. First, physicist Dr. Matthew Shadagas examines if these wisps could be mini dust devils, swirling columns of dirt that, unlike tornadoes, form on clear weather days.
This appears to be a fairly grassy area, so I don't see any evidence that there's loose dirt or dust, and I don't see any evidence of wind elsewhere in the video.
Then what about the ghost theory? Forensic video analyst Michael Primo understands why some people see what looks like human apparitions.
As the video plays, you can sort of see this faint line that's running vertically here. And even at a certain point, it almost looks like you could identify a head and some sort of torso.
So Primo goes back in to take a closer look.
Adding a filter called Sobel in our enhancement tool, we can better see the lines within an image and thus shows the dark toned circular object more clearly. It appears that this was something that was recorded in front of the camera, and we can explain it as something on the windshield.
Primo concludes it's the perfect timing and positioning of what's likely a dead bug, a water droplet, or a bit of sap that brings this spooky scene to life.
The three components that contribute to the false interpretation of these images are the size of the objects, the timing as it travels past these cannons, as well as the direction, moving from the right to the left. They all kind of paint this picture that this ghost is running from this area where they had once lived into the roadway, and that's simply not the case. Our verdict? Conveniently placed window smudges.
With that said, we still have no explanation for those mysterious noises the family heard at the start of this incident. So maybe there is more to this than meets the eye and the ear. It's summer 1991 in Barnby Place, Bradford, UK. 15-year-old Adam Mawson has been using a camcorder to record his house when no one's home, in an effort to document some strange recent happenings. And on one of the tapes, Adam finds something frightening. Nothing seems amiss until a shadowy figure slowly begins to emerge from the chair. Look closely. It eventually rises and moves about the room, passing behind the door frame before returning and seemingly disappearing through the wall. Moments later, a second figure appears from the right and follows closely behind the other into the wall.
I was scared to death because I thought, what the hell is that? And that's when I showed my parents it, and my mum said, oh yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen it with her own eyes.
And to journalist Alexis Brooks, it sounds like a classic haunted house tale.
Barnby Place ranks among one of the most haunted places that I have ever seen. I mean, you're talking about disembodied voices, doors opening, closing on their own, and even what I would call a shadow person phenomenon.
Shadow people are described as dark silhouettes with human shapes and profiles. These shadowy creatures are sometimes interpreted as the presence of a spirit or other entity. Others believe these figures to be negative beings that can be repelled by various means, including invoking the name of Jesus.
I have seen and heard so many accounts of what we call the shadow person phenomenon. Many reports of shadow people include harassing an individual in their bedroom. So I would dare say that in addition to the more conventional haunting, we have what I would call a shadow person phenomenon going on in that home.
A figure often associated with shadow people is the Hat Man, a famous urban legend who wears a dark coat, a hat, and is unusually tall. Sometimes the figure is thought to be the devil himself. Adam's father still lives in the house on Barnby Place and says the activity has died down since he found religion. But that only seems to confirm that perhaps something spiritual was going on. Our experts take a closer look. First, we head to forensic video analyst Michael Primo for an authenticity check of this digitized copy.
We're not able to identify it as an actual ghost through forensic testing, but it could be the product of when the video was processed between the time that it was produced on tape to this digital version as some sort of artifact that is concealed as the object travels by, but is it CGI? Less likely.
So this footage probably wasn't manipulated intentionally, but how about accidentally?
These shadowy figures don't appear to be something that was introduced into the recording based on the artifacts that are present throughout its movement. And because we see these shadowy figures over several seconds in multiple instances, it's more likely something that actually happened in the video images.
So this recording itself may not have been manipulated, but we are not ready to declare this a ghost. We turn to physicist Dr. Matthew Shadagis, who suspects something shady.
What we're seeing here is this dark figure of shadow seeming to pass into the left wall and disappear, which would favor the ghost explanation. However, if you look very carefully over these few frames, there is some pixel darkening on the left that would seem to indicate that the shadow goes over the wall as we'd expect for a normal shadow being cast by someone off camera. It does not fully explain all the subtle motions we see, such as when the shape rises out of the chair, but it's the most plausible non-ghost explanation that I can come up with.
Primo disagrees and doesn't see any evidence that the shadow was created by someone off camera.
If the shadow was produced by the operator that's standing behind the camera, we would expect to see more of that cast off on the regions surrounding the doorway. But it's not produced over here on the right side of the image. These darker regions, being some sort of shadow is not really possible with the way that we don't see that information on the doorway.
So if we're ruling out shadows of someone off camera, could this truly be a ghost? Some say physics itself is all the proof you need of life after death, because the law of conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. We bring that theory to Dr. Shadagis.
This is a misinterpretation of what conservation of energy means. The very notion of conservation of energy comes from energy changing form. And a great example of this, energy exchange, occurs after we have passed away and our body decomposes. Gases and other elements will feed the worms after we've died. Therefore, we cannot use an argument like conservation of energy from physics in order to prove or disprove life after death.
So, it seems current science still can't attest to the existence of ghosts. But as of now, we can't explain this video any other way. Our verdict? This video is a bona fide case of unexplained phenomena, over 30 years running. It's September 2016 in Legazpi City in the Philippines. Grieving mother Joy Almarez is attending the wake of her 7-year-old son Trebi, who has just died. Suddenly, a white balloon starts moving towards her from behind the coffin as if it has a life of its own. You can see from the video that the balloon gets all the way to Joy, and then, rather than moving past her, it suddenly stops. Now watch. It starts rubbing up against her as if in a caress, leaving the bereaved mother even more emotional.
I felt that he was there to comfort me because I was really crying that night. It's like he hugged me. And that's what I felt. I had goosebumps and I kept on crying out loud more because I felt him and I know that's him because he's like that when he's alive.
Joy believes this is a miraculous sign her son is sending from the other side, since he always had a special connection with balloons.
He really loved balloons since he was really small. Since it's a funeral, I thought it would be good if it's white. I thought of him as angel.
The idea that the mother feels intently that this child was communicating with her is known to research in parapsychology. There's a term called after-death communication, or ADC. There are a variety of ways in which these ADCs can occur, not the least of which are physical or symbolic ADCs.
According to Psychology Today, up to 3/4 of people grieving a loss report some form of after-death communication. This communication can include seeing the presence of a deceased person, smelling or hearing something associated with them, or, more indirectly, encountering a symbol or animal with some significance to their lives. 1/5 of these ADCs are backed by some sort of evidence, such as sensing a death before knowing it's happened, or multiple people sharing the same experience independently. So is this balloon really a sign from beyond, or is there some earthly explanation for what's happening? Let's ask the experts. Visual engineer and Catholic miracle historian Michael O'Neill has examined the video to assess its authenticity.
We selected this image because we have a variety of backgrounds, so we can see any kind of surface effects, edge effects, where we might see a blend if it was done imprecisely. We don't see a lot. Of course, a balloon is a three-dimensional object, so easy in a 3D modeling software to pick the light source of being off to the left-hand corner.
O'Neill detects no surface or edge effects, indicating the balloon was digitally added, but has it been physically manipulated?
One other possibility is that if this balloon were being dragged around the room, perhaps by strings at the top, strings at the side, strings to the back, strings out this way, and the pixels would be duplicated or dropped down to cover that string. We see no reflections here of any strings, so we assume that there are no strings.
Then could it simply be air currents that are moving the balloon through the room? Astrophysicist Dr. Hakeem Oluseyi admits that the balloon does seem to move somewhat erratically.
From what's visible, it doesn't seem like there is a really strong source of air current anyway. Because if you look at the mother, you look at hair, you look at things other than the balloon, you don't see the effect of a wind that would make the balloon move at that velocity in that very directed way.
If it's not air movement, could static electricity be causing this effect?
You can imagine someone thinking, if I'm on the opposite side of a room from a balloon and my hair has the opposite electric charge, could I pull that balloon across the room to my hair? And the answer is a definite no. If there was that much static electricity built up between you and the balloon, you'd probably have a big lightning bolt between the two of them.
Oluseyi adds that larger objects store more energy during a buildup of static electricity, so a balloon's charge would be relatively weak. So we certainly can't rule out coincidence, a barely perceptible movement of air, plus some level of static attraction as the balloon gets closer to the mother. But it's open to interpretation.
The balloon is moving in a way that we would not expect. So that implies something is going on. My natural explanation would be, of course it's a fake, of course, but I can't prove it. Is it divine intervention? Is it somehow the soul hanging on for some extra time before going to heaven? Anything's possible.
And as for Joy,
That made me believe that there's so much more in this world. There's really spirits, and they're just here with us.
our verdict here, this is an unexplained phenomenon. Though there is a chance this is all staged, there's no proof of that from the forensics. And if a balloon can ease the suffering of a grieving mother, that just might be a miracle in itself. July 23rd, 2011, in a suburb just outside of Portland, Oregon, Thomas Collins hears strange noises emanating from an abandoned house on a property adjacent to his parents' home. He enlists a good friend to join him in his investigation.
This is Andrew.
When the two discover this,
There it is.
there's a high-pitched howl.
Be cautious.
My camera's having a really hard time picking this up.
Just wait.
As they enter the house, they see strange graffiti scrawled on the wall.
We have to make sure there's nothing in here.
They turn off the light. But curiosity gets the best of them.
Yeah, I think it's on the roof. The heck is that? Shoot! Christians.
Let's see that again. Zoomed in and slowed down.
We heard a noise, and that's when we turned and were able to spotlight that creature. But it scared us so much that we just ran. I didn't feel like it wanted to hurt me, but I felt like if it wanted to, it could. And so that was enough to give me a scare.
Although Thomas says he's been back to the property to investigate during daylight hours, he's never encountered the alleged creature again. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt helps us decipher what we just saw.
So this is a video that, for obvious reasons, has gotten a lot of action online. It's very creepy, very reminiscent to a mysterious creature known as the Rake, a hairless humanoid creature standing about 6 feet tall, very cadaverous, gray, pallid skin, deep-set eyes. It's described as being very evil, terrorizing, even murdering people, particularly small children. Back in 1964, there was a gentleman who described this Rake creature as having tormented him and driven him to the point to where he actually had to take his life.
Gerhardt also theorizes that it could be a fabled hairless being from Native American tales.
In the north central United States, we have tales of the Mannegishi, humanoid types of creatures, small in stature, but with large heads, large eyes, very malevolent and evil, very dangerous to humans.
Gerhardt suggests there may be another Native American myth connected to this. Dating back thousands of years, various American Indian tribes have spoken of extraterrestrial visitors they called star people, who bear a striking resemblance to the gray aliens often described in more modern-day alien abduction claims. Since this video was recorded in the wee hours of the night, whatever we're seeing here seems to have a sixth sense for thriving in darkness. You know, nocturnal predators such as owls, cats, and rodents have developed keen hearing, smell, and dark-adapted vision in order to navigate and hunt at night. To assess the actual threat level from this nocturnal creature, we turn to our experts. Professor of Anatomy and Anthropology, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, weighs in on the Mannegishi claims.
I think that the most telling disqualification is the size. I mean, these are described consistently as little people. And my experience with indigenous populations here, that can be anything from 5 inches tall to 3 feet tall. But my impression was of a more human size being depicted in the video rather than a very small creature.
Anthropologist Kathy Strain has some insights into the Greys theory.
When people talk about the Greys, they usually bring up that there's little ones and there's big ones. And the larger ones have these very long necks and these big, large eyes. And this doesn't really look like that because their eyes are much smaller.
So if it isn't the Mannegishi or Greys, could it be the fearsome Rake? Meldrum sees some red flags.
One thing that struck me about this video was the very orchestrated feel. I've never heard anyone say, "Be cautious."
Be cautious.
Which seemed extremely contrived. And the only characteristics that really are discernible are that it has a pale, high forehead and rounded skull. That could be a mask. And given the popularity of the Rake image, there's no shortage of Rake masks online.
Next, we bring in forensic video expert Michael Primo to analyze if this video could, in fact, be an elaborate hoax.
This doesn't appear to be anything that was essentially CGI'd or manufactured. The physical aspects of the scene kind of confirm that this appears to be something within this scene, but whether or not it's a paranormal creature, determinations about that simply can't be made from a forensic perspective.
But Primo isn't satisfied, and it doesn't take him long to find more corroborative evidence online.
Upon further investigating, I found evidence that supported that this particular person that created this video had some sort of IMDb profile, specifically in the genre of science fiction. It appears that this person does this professionally in some capacity to create videos like this. It's pretty clear cut here that these videos have been post-produced and they are fake.
Oh, shoot, no! Shoot, shoot!
Our verdict? We're calling it a hoax. The scripted feel of the video and the human-like size of the creature are the main giveaways. Though Thomas still swears the encounter was real, we can clearly say this isn't a Rake. But abandoned sites still remain a hotbed of supernatural activity. So rest assured, we will continue to explore them.